I never meant to work at Red Willow Canyon. I didn't even like the outdoors. Hiking felt exhausting, unremarkable, something people did to escape boredom. I took the seasonal ranger job because I was drifting, because my life had grown thin and gray, and a paycheck anywhere felt like an opportunity to vanish for a while. But the moment I set foot in that canyon, I realized I hadn't vanished at all. I had returned to something that had been waiting for me. The doors are the first thing anyone notices, though no one talks about them outright. Steel-framed, rusted at the edges, tucked into narrow fissures where sunlight barely reaches. They are unmarked, silent, almost apologetic. The orientation briefing was unnerving in its calmness. Merrick, the head ranger, didn't smile. "You do not stop anyone," he said, voice flat. "We watch, we log, we wait." I asked why. "They come out different," he said, shrugging like it was obvious. "Calmer, kinder, but subtly wrong. It's not your place to question it." I nodded, though I didn't understand. That first week I watched as hikers approached the doors, some laughing nervously, some tense and silent. One young couple caught my attention. The woman tucked her hair behind her ear, glanced at the man, and squeezed his hand. He squeezed back, a small reassuring gesture. Then they disappeared through the narrow doorway, swallowed by shadow. I trained my binoculars on the door and waited. Minutes passed, hours, maybe. When they emerged, they were not the same. The woman's laughter had vanished, replaced by a still, almost too perfect composure. The man moved with a quiet precision that made my stomach tighten. Their eyes were calm but vacant, their movements deliberate in a way that didn't feel natural. My notebook shook slightly in my hand as I wrote, "Hiker 3 entered door 1. Exit, serene, vacant, polite, no questions asked." The pattern repeated. Singles, couples, groups, they all returned different. Some were slower, careful, polite to a fault. They seemed brighter at first glance, friendlier, patient, but something essential was missing. Life, urgency, I couldn't put a finger on it. Their smiles were too even, their words carefully chosen, their eyes empty. I started to notice changes in myself. Small things first. A patience I had never had before. My movements deliberate, my breathing measured. Conversations that once frustrated me now passed without response. I began noticing the other rangers. Their calmness was uniform, Merrick especially. His voice always steady, his eyes empty but attentive. I asked him once about the logs, the doors, the hikers. He tilted his head, expression unreadable. "The canyon doesn't lie. You will. Watch, log, wait." Night shifts made it worse. The canyon swallows sound. The wind moves silently, as though reluctant to disturb the stones. I would sit in the shack, coffee long gone cold in my hands, staring at the fissures, and then they would appear. Single figures, slow, deliberate, serene. My chest would tighten. Their gaze didn't recognize me, or perhaps it recognized something I had been and no longer was. I remember one night, a lone hiker emerging just before dawn. I called to them, "Are you okay?" "Yes," they said, calm, measured. "Better than ever." The voice made my stomach twist. It wasn't cruelty or malice. It wasn't a lie. It was wrong, polished, vacant. They passed me as if I were a shadow. Then it started with the logs, employment records, hiker logs, personnel files. I noticed entries before my start date. Some even had my name, logged as if I had been there before, during shifts I didn't remember working. I laughed it off at first. Clerical error, surely, until I opened my own personnel file. My employment officially began after the day I died. I hadn't told anyone about the accident. I'd been hiking the western rim with friends. A slip, a fall down a narrow cliff. They searched. The press listed me among the dead. My body was never found, and yet here I was, sitting at the ranger shack, logging hikers, observing, cataloging, living in a life I was supposed to have lost. The canyon changes people, slowly, quietly. At first it's subtle, patience, calmness, careful speech. Then it reaches deeper. It erases mistakes, erases fear, erases humanity, leaving something polite, measured, hollow. I watched it happen to the other rangers. I could feel it working on me. I noticed the reflection in the window one early morning. My eyes weren't my own, too steady, too neutral. Someone else's eyes. I knew I had to see it through. I walked to the nearest door, heart hammering, trembling fingers on cold steel. The same low hum I had felt before curled in my skull, insistent and polite. I stepped inside. The corridor beyond was muted light, impossibly clean air. Still, too still. Figures moved slowly, carefully, speaking to nothing. smiling at nothing. Some glanced at me, expression blank, then continued as if I weren't there, and I realized I had been here before. All those logs, all that employment, all my calmness after my death. Now I sit in the shack, writing this, watching the canyon doors. Hikers come, laugh nervously, gripping fear in their hands. I do nothing. I cannot. When they emerge, calm, hollow, subtly wrong, I record it, quietly, methodically. Sometimes, in the quiet hours, I think of the life I left behind, friends who mourned me, days filled with real laughter and real grief. I feel a stab of grief, yes, but the canyon doesn't wait. It expects obedience. And I am too far gone to resist. The doors wait, the canyon waits, and I wait too. Time doesn't matter here. Identity doesn't matter. Only the watching, the logging, the patient correction of those who enter. I don't know if anyone will believe this. I barely believe it myself. But soon another hiker will come, and I will watch. And when they emerge, perfectly polite, perfectly calm, I will record it, as I always have. Because in Red Willow Canyon, death is optional. But being subtly, irrevocably wrong is mandatory. And with each hiker who returns, I feel it tightening around me. The quiet inevitability that I will eventually step out of one of those doors myself. Calm, hollow, perfectly right, and irreversibly wrong. Time passes here without weight. The canyon listens. The stones remember. And I wait, as I always have. The doors wait. The canyon waits. And I'm already inside.